Greetings, everybody, from Lily Willy. I hope everyone is well enough tonight or today, depending on where you be. On my coast, it's 4:09 a.m. Some of you are well along into Wednesday, and maybe some few of you are already into Thursday, but we won't worry about you. I'm teasing. Today was a fairly busy day. Kind of felt like I was muddling along a little bit, but I also did manage in the early July. I wound up hitting my right little toe, the rightmost side of it, against a very, very hard wooden object, while mostly in deep nap, as I call it. And at that point, given that I was largely in deep nap and there was plenty of wood around me in the room area I was in, I also at that point banged my eye most likely into the wooden door as I was on my way either to or from the bathroom. And so for that reason, at that point, I got up with a black eye. But I actually didn't do worser damage. And yes, that word was used deliberately. Worser. You'll find that in early modern English we still use that from time to time, and it's one of those forms that always made sense to me. On top of which I have I'll get into that a bit some other time. But anyhow, later today, not so much later, it will be Wednesday the 26th of July, and I call him my husband, Jesse, is snoring soundly, loudly at the moment, and I'm to get him up at 8. And And yes, that is something I do regularly, though by no means absolutely every day, because he had I call it a deep nap disorder. And I won't go into everything it does for 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 him. Um, Suffice it to say, it helps make his life as interesting as depression, anxiety disorders, and mild. But distinctly significant seizure disorder doth for me. And so I, so, you know, we take turns. Doing our best to keep each other on track. Or trackety wackety whack 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 whack. Yes, I'm weird. Deal with it. I hope that your day upcoming, whichever day that might be for you, because you know some of you are quite a bit farther along into your Wednesday than I am. But what else have I been doing tonight? Well, after Jesse and I got back from dinner, he and I did some respective online things. And after he headed into bed, I began to do some proofreading work and editing work on my memoir. Which I've been working on to different degrees of at least semi-manic profuseness and flurries for on and off since about 2005. Wait a minute, you're only 38. What could you have a memoir to write about? Well, that's actually a fairly long story. And as I write, it's evolving and taking more effort and more sojourning and digging to piece things together. And although in bits and pieces I've included references to others, observations here and there, it's largely written from what I remember, as it should be. But the subject is a little bit complex because I grew up with a brain tumor in my right hemisphere that by the time it was removed on January 7th, 2002, which I count as my emotional brain's first birthday. At that point, it had attained a stage 2 of 4. And it was a slow growing tumor, astrocytoma. I'd been given to understand for most of my life that it was benign. But it was actually stage 2, meaning slow growing. And it, together with some of the things I thought from what I didn't know then, growing up, together with side effects from pharmaceuticals I was on at the time, were to prevent and/or control seizures. I wound up going through most of my two-thirds of my life at this point, roughly, with about half of my emotional hemisphere geographically and about a third of it medicinally closed off to me. And while there were aspects of it at certain stages, while there were bits of it at stages as far as the emotional side of it that had basis in behaviors I took or were enhanced by behaviors I took, a good significant chunk of it was neurological first, quite literally. I had my first seizure as an infant, and I had my very first brain surgery, then to remove part of the tumor at age 6.5 in December 1985. But the story that I narrate, which is told in a semi-archaic voice, not just because I'm weird, but because of how I raised myself and of what I was like inside from a young age. And I share it because there were sides of it that that share some things in common, sometimes mild, sometimes much more intensively with others, including those who have undertaken any portion of the journey I did. Psychologically, including along gender lines, internally, or beliefs around gender, moral and ethical lines, and thinking something was morally wrong with them when there wasn't, or at least not more so, much more so than average. And because I can't bear the thought of someone's else dealing with any of the stress and yes, and portions of it hurt, and long stretches of flatness that precluded feelings of caring or sympathy or compassion at a reactive level. Having to pick to do the right thing because or to think their way at some point into being bothered intellectually when they didn't have sympathy or love or were flat when they held someone who was crying. I couldn't bear the thought of someone else wondering why when they had some of the same problems I did. I couldn't bear it. And I couldn't. And much more. But I've been working on it since on again, off again since 2005 when I was still in college. Resolving the closing bits of my BA in German and taking a couple, not very many, psychology classes here and there. Yeah. Still somehow maintaining a social life online and Oh my god, online and off. Oh my god. um, but but I wanted to put this up here on my YouTube. Because of a number of different things. But I'll start here. If you're somebody who at any stage, even without feelings of depression, and I do mean at any stage, if you're someone who at any point in your reality ever go for a long time just damned flat, as in blank screen flat, even to the point where at any point you can't tell if you love your own cat or dog, even to the point where you feel like Lieutenant Data before the emotion chip, with or without the ability to taste when something tastes awful. If you're somebody who can't feel happy, even when you don't feel sad, if you're somebody who ever goes through a very, very, very long period where you can't even feel regular sad, and you don't know what it feels like to care, to feel in your reactive brain caring for someone you talk to a doctor. Talk to a doctor first. You may or may not have a neurological problem. I want you all to know that. Because I went through it. And although it took a longer time because of the way my brain was, and because of the way I pharmaceutically was, for it to personally hurt, to really hurt, it did get there. I got there. I got there via scared and panic and stress. But I wound up eventually in guilt. I wound up eventually getting there because I wondered what was wrong with me. That I could sit with somebody who was crying and not feel a thing. Even when I was giving them what I knew was sympathetic speech. Even when I was positive the tones were right. Please. Please. Because thinking yourself evil when you'd really thinking yourself evil as I did for a long time. Think myself. When you'd really rather know what it felt like to feel the warm and fuzzies for yourself. To know what it felt like to feel happy when you saw your best friend. Or to feel love when you gave someone a hug. Or to really feel sympathy when someone was leaning on you. I don't want anybody else to go through that. Because I did. And it fucked. Pardon my Norkish. Bless you. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of has his/her in one or gender neutral pronoun day. And I really hoping that irrespective of what your own ethical code or moral code, including as regards caring about yourself, that you take this to heart or head heart, if that's what you've got. Please. Please.